This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. Yes, it's me again, Coach AJ. I'm subbing in for our illustrious Becca Dukes, who is out learning so she can help us some more. And speaking of illustrious, our guest today is a gentleman who we affectionately call Dr. Dirt. His name is Richard Renton. He, you know what, Richard? As opposed to trying to muck up this intro for you, I'm going to bring you on and we're going to handle it that way. But before I do that with Richard, I just want to let you know this program is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonial shares are the experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical, and we do not make any claims regarding health or income, but as an empowered individual, you do have options. And speaking of options, our number one option, the guy I would pass the ball to if I were the quarterback so he could run it home and get a touchdown, Richard Renton, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. To give you a little bit of a hard time, football was never really my sport. Baseball was my sport. And I was actually drafted by the Houston Astros to be a catcher, and then I ruined my knee, and that dream ended. But after I did that, I went back to school and got a sports medicine and biochemistry degree. And then I got my master's in nutrition and sports medicine and became a board certified athletic trainer. And so, we always think, oh, I never got to do my dreams and whatnot and things like that. And I kind of think of it in a different way. If I would have gotten my dream, what would have happened to all of us and longevity? Would that dream even exist? I'm not saying that I'm solely responsible for longevity existing, but I did play a major part. And so, I'm proud to say that it probably turned out to be best. And so I always challenge people, you never know what your influence is going to be in the coming years. So always make your best day the day you're active now. And if you always try to do your best and do your best, your life will be successful. And I can be grateful for it. So I need to do a little report card on myself. Last month, I basically took the month off and went to Europe and had a great time over in Europe. But I kind of told people I was going to do an experiment while I was gone, and I was going to take the plant-derived minerals and spray it on my beard every day to see if I can get it to get more color because of the tin and copper that was in there. Well, all good plans work, except I put it in a 6-ounce jar and put it on my carry-on. And so the TSA was nice enough to work on their hair color, but I didn't get to do mine. So my beard, to be honest with you, is just as gray as it was. The other great thing that happened on a vacation, and I think a majority of the people can say it's happened to them, I came home with a cold. And so that being fun, we'll have a good time. If I sound a little nasal for you, I apologize. If I cough a little bit, I apologize, or sneeze, but we'll work our way through it. So the first issue I thought we talked about, since I do have a cold, is what do I recommend to people when they have a cold? And probably the first thing I'll tell you is zinc. And zinc is a great mineral, but like all the other minerals, a plant can't make zinc, so it's got to be in the soil if you want to get it via your diet. And you can get it via your diet. We'll talk about different foods that are typically high in zinc, but it's hard to do. So supplement is an ideal situation. Now, there is a couple things that I warn people with supplements, and zinc gluconate is probably one of the better forms that you can get as far as a dietary. Try not to do zinc citrate unless you want to have a softening of your stool or have a flushing of your colon. In other words, when you get a colonoscopy and those situations, they usually give you large doses of zinc citrate to help prep you. That's what they call it. I call it something different, but help prep you for your colonoscopy. And so if you were to take that as a dietary supplement, it's fairly predictable what will happen. And so gluconate is a better form. But zinc has a lot of benefits, and I thought I'd go through some of the benefits that you may want to consider it here. And I wrote cheat notes. You're going to catch me reading, and that's okay because I want to give you accurate information. So the first category that it does is it supports your immune system. It helps your body fight infection. It helps produce more white blood cells within your system, and it reduces inflammation. And it doesn't prevent you from getting a cold, but what it does do is shorten the term. Now, the current colds that are out there, because I actually talked to my physician and we talked about this, seems to be lasting longer than colds in the past. In other words, when I used to get a cold in the past, it might last 3 days and then it'd be over. She says that the common cold that she's seeing now is lasting 10 to 14 days. And so and a lot of the symptoms parallel COVID, the current batch of COVID that's out there. And so you should do what AJ does and drink a lot of water and improve that. Yes, I do look up at my screen, AJ, and you can hopefully shorten the distance. And I'm at about day 8 on my cold, and I'm starting to feel significantly better than I did before, but it's definitely a longer one. The second thing that's really good at is healing wounds or taking care of your skin, depending on what you're doing. And it also helps your blood system clot. In other words, it helps your platelets and whatnot clot. But it also helps fight acne. A lot of people, when they're at the age where acne is strong, young teenagers to through their 30s will actually put spray like I was going to put on my beard in a spray bottle and every night spray their face after they wash it to get the excess oils and to add the trace minerals on them. And they have a tendency to reduce their acne. That's an easy way to do it. Another thing that zinc does, we all know, is it blocks UV. And almost every sunblock I know of has zinc in it. It's what really makes it a white cream for those that see the cream is the zinc oxide. In fact, if you ever talk to a mountain climber that climbs really high altitude mountains above 14 or 16,000 feet, he usually covers their face in zinc oxide so that they don't get UV burns. And then it helps with, along with copper and zinc, it helps with wrinkles and things like that on your face. Um, the other things that zinc does, it helps childhood and adolescence, adequate zinc during times of rapid growth, and it helps them through rough stages in puberty. And so those are kind of things that you don't really see so much too. And a deficiency of zinc will kill your taste and smell. And so one of the key ways to know if you have a zinc deficiency, if you start to feel that your smelling is going away. So we talked about food sources that are important with zinc, and I can tell you red organ meat is extremely high in zinc as well as oysters. Since zinc is a considered one of the major minerals. You see them in a lot of fortified cereals and whatnot. They're high in beans and nuts and high in dairy product. And so that's what you do. Longevity has two major zinc products, and it has many minor ones. In other words, all our multivitamins, whether it's BTT or daily tablets or the BTT tablets or Ultra Body Toddy or all of those, all have fortified with zinc. But the two big ones is Zinc Plus, which is a tablet. It has 10 milligrams of zinc in it, or the zinc tincture, which I think is called Ultimate Zinc. I could be wrong on that, but
Correct.
Ultimate Zinc. And it has 5 milligrams in a 750 milliliter eyedropper. In other words, if you fill that eyedropper up and put it sublingual, you'll get 5 milligrams. Now, upper tolerable limit we've talked a lot about is a guideline that the FDA puts out, and they basically find where people start to see adverse side effects of like nausea for too much zinc, and that comes in at about 80 milligrams. So what they typically do is divide it in half, and which brings it down to 40, and they say that's what the upper tolerable limit is. But typically most people get between 5 and 10 milligrams a day is a good dose. You can go a little bit stronger with that, maybe go up to 20 during cold season that we're just entering into. And so having colds, I find the best time to start taking this is actually past. And that's when your kids start to go to school because they seem to bring home everything, including homework. And that's every disease that those kids have. I don't think Karen, my partner's had a cold in years because she taught for 30 years and then she was administrator for another 15 after that. And her immune system is pretty rock solid. I work basically in my home and have for the last 30 years. So my exposure to fight off um, viruses and whatnot isn't as strong as hers because I haven't been exposed as much as she has. And so those are different things. And so sometimes it's good to be out there. But eating, antioxidant foods and things like that is always beneficial. And zinc is one of the best ways to do it. The other mineral that I really wanted to touch bases on for a little bit before we kind of toss it open is magnesium. And, oh, I made a big boo boo before. Zinc doesn't give you diarrhea, magnesium does. So you lead everything I said about zinc citrate. It's magnesium citrate. Um, we'll blame it on the cold. Magnesium citrate will loosen the stool in your system and help flush your system out. If you want to do that, I really don't recommend it. I think there's lots of herbal products that we have with longevity that will help you do that in a much milder form. But zinc glutamate is very, very important. And there is over 300 enzyme correlations. In other words, enzymes that work effectively that work in your body when magnesium is present. And so magnesium is, in my mind, second to only calcium as far as important minerals within your system. Now, way up there is potassium, way up there selenium. We could talk about all 90 or all 60 minerals, 90 essential nutrients, and they're all important. But the amount of things that magnesium does within your body is just absolutely huge. As far as your cardiovascular health, it regulates your blood pressure. Now, how many people do you talk to today have elevated blood pressure that they're concerned about? Taking an increase in their magnesium in their diet, whether it's just 100 milligrams, will probably make a significant difference. It also helps maintain heart rhythm. And so everyone can nod their head because, if you're at my age at 70, there isn't a week go by where you talk to people that are struggling with heart rhythm. It also reduces in general cardiovascular and so challenges overall. And so you'll see magnesium in most of our cardio products for that main reason. But the other main reason that it's important is bone health. And I always try to teach people, if you think about bone health as a screen in your window and you have all those little holes in there, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and potassium is what fills up those holes to make that matrix strong. And glucosamine sulfate and chondroitin sulfate. And so by having magnesium in there, you help strengthen your whole skeletal structure system. It correlates with your absorption capabilities with vitamin D and vitamin D and calcium. And so there's a lot of studies out there that if you eat or digest 1,200 milligrams of calcium, you really need about 600 milligrams of magnesium. In other words, it's half as much. Do you have to take them at the same time? No, they just have to work together within your body. And so that's when that becomes important. It also works significantly with muscles. If you're a person that gets cramps, it's usually either magnesium or potassium that you have a deficiency in that's causing those cramps, or you don't drink enough water. And so I always encourage people to, if they start to get cramps, eat a half a banana and eat some beans or take some osteomag. If they start to get the cramps, unfortunately, when you take a tablet and you do it supplement wise, you're really preventing the next cramps, not the current cramps that you have. However, water can reduce cramps pretty much right away and those types of things. It also helps your muscles recover from fatigue. So a way a muscle gets stronger is you have these fibers within your muscle that contract and expand, and that's how your muscles can flex and extend. And when you work those is when you actually break them down and they rebuild stronger, and there's more of them that rebuild. Well, magnesium is one of those major minerals that are involved with the building of those muscles along with amino acids, and they work extremely hard with that. It also works in your nervous system to help synapse occur within the muscles themselves. And so in 3 different ways, it helps build your muscles and helps your muscles work more efficiently in what's going on. The other thing that magnesium helps is with mental situations. If a person is feeling depressed and whatnot, that's a key sign that they have a magnesium deficiency, that they may need to increase magnesium. Um, I had a grandson that started to have a little bit of Tourette's syndrome, where he started to have a speech impediment with a little bit of barking and chirping, we'll call it. And his father is an MD and works for Providence Hospitals up in Portland, Oregon. And we were talking about it, and I go, why don't you just give him a little more magnesium and see what that does? And he kind of looked at me, and he did his due diligence, as every good parent should, and found out that there was research that supported that. And so he gave his son, not my favorite form, but he gave his son a magnesium gummy bear, because I didn't really want him to have the sugar, but it was a way that his son would eat more magnesium every day without protesting. And it took about a week, and he stopped. It just stopped. And he doesn't like coming to me and say, you were absolutely right. But on that particular one, he said, I'm grateful for you to tell me that, and I'm going to share it with my other patients. It works so well. And so, you could talk about some of the benefits of magnesium. We there again, if you want to um, loosen your stool, it's a very good way to do it. Just don't do the measurements they recommend for a colonoscopy. Take a milder dose and you won't have a problem. I know that magnesium citrate's an over-the-counter product that you can get it with lemon. It still doesn't taste good, but whatever does it. Typical person needs really adult needs between 400 and 500 milligrams of magnesium. Upper tolerable limits is quite a bit higher than that. But it's something that I think everyone should take a look at and how much they're getting. High doses of magnesium have been dictated to a lot of serious side effects. Usually they relate to the colon and those types of areas. But if you want to get pumpkin seeds or leafy green lettuce or spinach or legumes or grains or dark chocolate or milk, those are the type of things that have magnesium in there, and it can be a benefit. We have magnesium in a lot of our products, but the two that I'm going to highlight is CalMag under the biometric family. It's got a 1200 milligram, 600 magnesium in a serving, which is really ideal. It's pretty tasteless. You can put it in all your liquid combinations if you wish, or if you're a tablet lover, especially if you like large tablets, you can take Osteomag, and that's a good form as well, and will help you with that. If you don't like large tablets, but you still want to take it in a tablet form, I'll say invest $1.99 and get a tablet cutter. You kind of make it smile, but it's an easy way to make the tablet smaller. You're just going to increase the number. AJ's laughing, hopefully at me, not with me. And so those types of situations, and that's true with all our tablets. Everyone goes, why don't you make a powder, or why don't you make our powder like BTT powder, the same formula in tablets? And basically it's because you would have to take 6 or 8 a day to be a dose, and they'd be the size of the BTT tablets or the Ultimate Daily tablets. And most people don't like tablets that big. And so because of that, we leave it in the powder form, and hopefully you put it in a drink. And if you're like me during this time of the year, I start to use warm water, not boiling water, but warm water, 140 or thereabouts. And it kind of reminds me of when I was growing up and I was trying to be like the astronaut, and I was drinking Tang before I go off into space. And so BTT kind of reminds me of that and brings back good memories with that also. And in all our multivitamins we have, as well as zinc, we have magnesium in them as well. And so there's my little 20-minute lecture on the benefits of two crucial minerals that I think everyone should be aware of and the benefits of. I'm sure Doc could talk 2 or 3 hours on it, but him being doctor, he could probably diagnose and prescribe more legally than I can. And so I'll take a step away from doing that. But I will tell you, if you have questions about magnesium, if you go to pubmed.gov, which is the federal government medical library, and you put benefits of magnesium in there, or even if you go to AI and you put benefits of magnesium in there, you'll have pages and pages and pages of benefits in there. The PubMed will actually have the research. AI basically takes all the research out and just gives you a synopsis on what's going on. And so, that being said, I think it's good that people get their own information and they do a little bit of their own research, because bottom line, you're the one that's making the decision on your body. And I hope you never say whatever you say you're the doctor without checking out that first. And so I encourage everyone to become more knowledgeable. There again, I'll talk about our food in general. I always shop on the outside of my store and not in the middle of my store, because I find that processed foods are more in the middle and they're almost always packed in plastic. And I'm starting to really get on that bandwagon of trying to reduce the amount of plastic exposure to my food. I used to be a big proponent of ocean salt, but then I found out that ocean salt of all the foods has more plastic in it than anything else. And so I've gone to Himalaya salt, Himalaya pink salt, because it doesn't have that exposure. Sounds crazy, but there's research out there that says that even if you eat as well as AJ does, odds on favor, you have 5 pounds of plastic in you. Yuck. And it's all the way into your brain. It can pass the brain barrier. And so, that being said, I try to stay away from that stuff. So I'll open it up for questions. I see that Phyllis, AJ, has got her hand up right off the bat. And
Well,
so I
Phyllis
don't.
can wait till after my questions, but
Oh, okay.
thank you for that. And you certainly just going back to a couple of things that you said as far as your involvement in longevity and our our ability to have this company that has changed all of our lives in such dramatic ways. You're certainly the Keith Richards of the longevity family, I'd say.
Thank
Um,
you.
so we definitely appreciate that. And then as far as the different nutrients go that you mentioned for well, secondly, I think that CalMag tastes like Tang. If you were really talking about Tang, I really kind of think that CalMag is more like Tang. But um, as far as some of these other nutrients, interestingly enough, you talked about your grandson and his dad, and he, because he's an MD, uh, opted to use the fractionated nutrition method to kind of help his boy. But I just want you to touch on the fact that we do have Ultimate Classic Liquid, we do have uh, 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 what's the kids toddy. We
It's
do
time.
have these products that have a multifaceted effect on the body. It's not just we're kind of holistic. If you could touch on that just for a little bit of clarity for the folks who are not necessarily familiar with what we do.
So I totally agree with you. And he does give his son a multivitamin. It isn't ours, and we've had the debate, but there's certain battles you try to win and certain battles you just kind of, step into. But I did get him on a more full spectrum vitamin. So there's 90 essential nutrients. And if you take optimum levels of all 90 nutrients, you can prevent just thousands of health challenges. And taking products like essential fatty acids and Beyond Tangy Tangerine, or there's Ultra Body Toddy, which is another great liquid, or Ultimate Classic and whatnot, is really an ideal way. And the requirements of a child and to um, a young adult to a senior citizen, they're all 90 essential nutrients are required at all ages. And so it doesn't make any difference how old you are, how young you are. It may vary a little bit on how much of each nutrient you need, But even I'll take it the next step. I might need more calcium than maybe Judah does, but Judah may need more magnesium than I do. And so there is some variation and fluctuation in that. But if you can get a baseline nutritional guideline like the 90 essential nutrients, and then you build upon it like my sunflower did, where we can add something if we see a health challenge, excuse me, we can see a health challenge there, then I think that you can do little tweaks to the system that are more ideal in your system. And one of the best ways that I can share that is that since I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm not a health coach like you guys are, but I've been coaching people. I've been trying to get young women to take a hormone test in their 20s and 30s when their system is working the best, and then have that baseline number so that as they start to go through menopause and later and their system starts to fluctuate more, they can do it, take it again and see what the difference is between those two levels. Because if you do that, then you can get nutrition or progesterone or estrogen to equal it out, because you know, if my system was working perfectly at this level, I'm at this level, then I need to do this, right? And we could do that with a lot of things. I'm also not against the idea of getting a CAT scan when you're healthy, a full body CAT scan, because then when something goes wrong and they do a CAT scan, they have something to compare to. And so it helps the medical system work more efficient. But I think the best thing you could do is prevent the problems in the first place. And that's by taking all 90 essential nutrients. And to give my other praise to the Wallach kids, they've been drinking Ultimate Classic since before they were born, because Michelle was taking Ultimate Classic all through pregnancy. And they're used to the flavor. They don't think it tastes bad. You know, that's a learned response. And so you know, sharing it with your kids and things like that is probably the best thing you could do, or share it with your parents as you become a young adult and your parents are getting more senior and they seem to have more challenges.
Thank you for that, Richard. And I'm gonna switch to Phyllis, but I got an anonymous text in the chat, and it mentions that someone prescribed, so I'm assuming this is an MD, too much magnesium. She doesn't know what kind, and is supposedly um, unalived a senior citizen. Is that something that you think could happen if you got too much magnesium?
I Is it possible? Yes. So we'll just say it that way. Unlikely, but if it was like a pre-colonoscopy, usually they give you a 3 or 4 day session with 12 to 2,000 milligrams of citrate to, excuse me, have a major challenge. You would have to have it for a really long straight, and then you're going to be dehydrated and things like that. And that's going to cause other reactions within your body because your dehydration problems. Um, you know, I think I think if I was on a medication, I'm trying to think how I could say this without getting in trouble. And all of a sudden, I started to have more and more problems. I would try to isolate what was causing the problems. And the second I realized it was anything, whether it's a medication or a nutritional product, then I'd back off on it and see if the problem goes away. And then if it goes away, then I start issuing challenges on why. And I think probably, I get calls probably every month where people think their B12 levels too high. And I find that one also hard to believe, because B12 is so hard to be absorbed into your system. And I actually had one of our main distributors had me talk to an Amish midwife about why we want methyl versus comolamine on that. And is it really synthetic or is it natural? And it's kind of one of those iffy products. It comes from a natural source, but it goes into a lab that gets refined. And we talked about the benefits of that, and can you overdose it on that. So in general, I would say any element on the element chart, if you have too much, you can have problems. If you don't have enough, you can have problems. If you're somewhere in the middle, you're great. And the best example is oxygen. If you breathe nothing but pure oxygen, you'll stop exhaling, because the trigger to exhale is carbon dioxide. And if you stop exhaling, then what happens? You die. And everyone believes how important oxygen is, but that just kind of proves the point. You can drink too much water. It's kind of hard, but you can. And so it's finding the middle of that point. Now, some things like calcium, the high end is way up there and the low end is down here. So you have a big window there to hit. Some it isn't as much. And so that's how I'll kind of answer that question.
Wow.
Richard, we really are so lucky to have you and explain these things so clearly. It reminds me of that axiom, the dose determines the poison. So anything too much, too little can hurt you, essentially, even if we desperately need it. Okay, so I did have a couple questions about a product, and I will get to those. But when you depressed the heck out of me with your comment about the plastic in my brain, and it begs the question, now that we know this, what can we do? Now that we have all this foreign material in our bodies, what's really the most important thing for us to keep in mind?
Well, I think I don't think there's any reasonable research out there that says how you can delete the plastic out of your minds. But in general, I would say have really healthy kidneys is a good start because your kidneys are basically your car filter, oil filter for your body, right?
Mhm.
It helps gets all the contaminants out of your body. And so if you drink lots of water, if you drink and your blood stays at optimum levels and it's running it through that filter, hopefully your kidney will help reduce it. And so, we have kidney bladder support within our products, and there's lots of other things that are out there that help with kidney health. The pollen burst is one of my favorite things. It's got the liver tab, but it's also beneficial with kidney. There's Hope on the Stay Natural line, which helps purify your blood. And so those types of products will probably be beneficial. Do I have any scientific proof to back that up? No, I'm sorry, I'm going to cough again. But that being said, um, that's probably the direction I would go on that. And then limit your exposure. Start looking at how many plastic bottles of water you're drinking and is there glass alternative.
Mhm.
Maybe that's something we should look at. How much of your product is in plastic that you're buying from your store? Is there anything wrong with a paper sack for your mushrooms? They actually will last longer if you do. And just look at that. We used to, in our house, used to store all our leftovers in Tupperware type containers, not beating up on Tupperware, but plastic type sealed containers. Well, there's ones out there that are made with glass, and we've switched over. And I think so, just being aware of that, and also recycling wise, it makes more sense. I'd rather wash it out and reuse it again than throw it away. So we don't use plastic bags as much. We actually, it is a plastic, but we found one that has an elastic string on it and they're washable and reusable. And so when we have a mixing bowl, instead of using plastic wrap that we throw away, we put, I call them hair nets for the bowls, and we use something like that. Everyone can figure out what I'm saying now, we're just trying to reduce the amount of plastics that we're exposed to.
And I would maybe add in the Super KB capsules as well.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So Olga on YouTube has a few questions, and I know you're a great Good Herbs fan, and she has questions about the circulatory formula, which I don't happen to have in front of me, but she says, what if I took that or I took Ultimate Daily Classic tablets to help my circulation? Can you get by with just one of those or not? How do
So
you
my first
compare
question, are
those?
you taking all 90 nutrients and you're trying to make a leaf to enhance the blood circulation? And if the answer is yes, and you're taking all 90 nutrients, then I would say then circulation with Stay Natural is an excellent choice. And you only need to take that. But if you're bypassing the 90 essential nutrients and you're hoping that Ultimate Daily Classic is a better multivitamin that will help get you closer to that 90 level, then I would lean towards that direction. So Excuse me. And so based on that, I would say, it all depends on what else you're taking. It's not a cut dry answer on that one. Does
And
that make sense?
it does. That makes a lot of sense. And she was referring to the Good Herbs liquid circulatory formula.
Oh, yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
like you say, get your
If it's
basics.
supporting the 90 nutrients in a leaf form, yes.
Hmm. So, really, either one of those, or even both, if you choose, depending on your
Yep.
individual need.
Yes.
And then again about the good herbs, and this could apply to any of them. She asks again about the circulatory formula, but I think it's a good question for any of those good herbs products. Can they be taken over a prolonged period of time? Because sometimes those herbal pills you buy in the store are meant to be taken short term.
So a couple things about good herb products. Go by what the instructions say, because when those were originally designed, they were designed for healthcare practitioners to give to their patients under the guidelines of a healthcare practitioner. And so don't think if one dropper is good for me, four is better, right? Okay. And then the other thing is that herbs in general are plant medicine. And so I'm a proponent of taking plant medicine when you have a challenge or you're thinking you're walking into a challenge. Then once the challenge is gone, you stop.
Mhm.
It's not a 90 essential nutrient that you need the nutrient for the rest of your life for health. And so herbs step aside from the 90 essential nutrients.
Thank you for clarifying that. And I will make way for Mary here.
Hi, Mary.
Oh,
You're muted.
I think
Oh,
I'm
there you are.
unmuted now. Perfect. How are you today?
I'm good.
Yes, yes. I wanted to build off of your comments earlier on magnesium. In particular, for someone that's taken the 90, kind of on the program for a while, still has stiffness due to osteoarthritis, I would say, more kind of in the hips area, maybe the knees. Would you say, based on the comments on magnesium, maybe a little bit more magnesium could be helpful in the form of the CalMag versus maybe the Osteo FX, or is there any other products that you think might be better for that?
So I would answer your question as yes, but a lot of time the beginning stages of arthritis is inflammation, and so
Hmm.
I would look more as well to items that are going to reduce inflammation, and turmeric is extremely good at that.
Hmm.
You can increase it in your cooking too, because if you know anything about Indian food, they live on turmeric. And those types of situations. Or we have turmeric or Cell Shield RTQ, which both have turmeric in it.
Hmm.
And I would increase the turmeric in your diet. I actually um, eat turmeric pretty much every day
Hmm.
just to reduce the inflammation. Being a catcher back when I was in college, I wasn't very forgiving to my knees. And so I I'm 70 years old and I haven't had knee replacement, but there's days when I get up that I kind of my eyes kind of go, "Oh, my knees are there."
Hmm.
And so that being said, I would go in that direction. But as anything and with our and EFAs also help reduce
Hmm.
inflammation.
Okay.
And so I would just say I would, as we were talking about earlier, I only add one product at a time.
Hmm.
I always give it a good month. And so I might try turmeric for a month and see if that helps. If it doesn't, then I may go to magnesium. And I try to find that one magic pill or
Hmm.
button that helps me with my particular challenge. And then I know that that's an area I need to keep going with.
Got it. Okay. Perfect.
You know, I,
Great.
I love Doc with all my heart, but sometimes when he gets on the calls and whatnot, he gives a listener 20 different things to take.
Hmm.
And the main reason for that is that in his experience over the last 50 years of doing this, doing lectures and whatnot, he only gets one shot.
Yeah.
And it's usually only 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wants to see that person be successful. So he basically recommends the kitchen sink.
Yep.
So that he has full confidence that it'll make a difference in that individual. I try to develop a relationship with people where I'm going to be long term. We're going to talk down the road for maybe the next 2 years about your nutrition. And I'm happy to do that. But I'm willing to go, let's try this first. It has the greatest odds. Okay, then we could try this and try to find that one thing that your body is requesting.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I'll turn it over to AJ.
Fantastic, Richard. Thank you, Mary, for bringing in those questions. And Richard, I know you're not a doctor, so I'm just gonna tiptoe around this. We have a question regarding essential tremors for someone who's 59, 5'11", and 170 pounds, and has had these tremors since a teen. You're not a doctor, so we can't ask you to solve his issue, but I am asking you, what do you know about essential tremors? Is there some advice you can kind of give?
Well, I think in general, you could say a lot of tremors can be caused by some sort of a nervous disorder, right? I mean, that's pretty easy to, you don't need a PhD for that. And so I would reach out on various things that support the nervous system, magnesium being one of them, and see if that helps. Increase your magnesium by 100 milligrams. It's going to be beneficial to multiple parts of your body. Um, and you can see if it makes a difference with that. The other thing too is that CoQ10 has shown benefits with tremors and things like that. And we have a CoQ10 product as well. There's lots on the market. And so I would tell him to go to pubmed.gov and put in tremors and nutritional products and see what it suggests for that, and read some of the research. Um, the biggest challenge with anything that has to do with the nervous system or brain is that the blood-brain barrier is a very hard barrier to break, and it has to be an extremely small molecule to get in there. And so sometimes you can give your body the right things, but it just can't get to the area that it works for you. And that's unfortunate in many of these occasions. Lots of research is being done on that right now. But I would tell him, I would play around with calcium, I'd play around with magnesium, I'd play around with phosphorus, as well as CoQ10, and just see if there's something that will be beneficial. I'd also carefully look at his diet and write a journal on his diet. And he can't just say that he had a salad. He has to write down everything that he ate in that salad and see if there's a food allergy that might be connected to it as well.
Interesting. And when you talk about nutrients that are small enough to get through certain barriers, the one thing I do like about the CalMag, in particular, they use that micellular technology, so the molecules are extremely small. But I think he gave excellent advice. Do some research, and please, Mickey, email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com, and we can reach out to someone who can give you a better answer. And but what Richard said is more valuable than anything. He kind of talked earlier. We trust, but verify. You must do your own research and things like that. I do have a question. I think Mickey may have a follow-up question. Phyllis, you can bring that in. But I do have a question that might be brief. You talked about the I guess the screen, and then things that fill up the screen, calcium, magnesium, strontium. Uh, what about boron? I noticed that boron is in the, is there, what kind of effect does that have on the body?
So boron as a mineral, you don't need a lot. If you get 5 milligrams of boron a day, you're doing really well. Does it work? Is it involved with the bone matrix of your bones? Yes, but it isn't a high quantity like calcium. Calcium, if you're not taking 1,000 milligrams a day, you're going to have a deficiency. Well, there's a big difference between the two. But boron is involved with bones as well as manganese, which I don't think we've ever talked about. And we'll probably talk about down the road. But manganese is another one that's in there as well. But if you're typically taking a gelatin or collagen product, you're getting manganese within that because it's really a lot of the times they're bonded to amino acids and you get it that way.
Mhm. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned keep track of your food. Newly on the Critical Health News website, if you go in and sign up for the newsletter, there is a food diary template that you can get for free if you sign up for the food diary template there. And just when just to recap with the common cold, you mentioned a Zinc FX, but vitamin C I'm surprised. I know that you are Dr. Dirt, so you talk about minerals, but vitamin C is kind of important for in the B complex. You did mention the EFAs, uh, hydration, sleep, plant-derived minerals, but yeah, I am surprised a little bit that you did not mention any vitamins when you talked about uh, getting over a cold.
So there's a PhD that was a professor emeritus at Oregon State University by the name of Linus Pauling. And maybe you've heard of him. He's won 2 Nobel Prize. I think he's the only chemist that's won 2 twice. And he was a proponent of vitamin C. Dr. Wallach is known as the mineral doctor. He's known as the vitamin C doctor. And he would turn around and hit me in the back of the head like Gibbs does in NCIS and say, you didn't mention vitamin C. You should be taking it to bowel intolerance. And so taking 1,000 milligrams or 2,000 milligrams, depending on your system, of vitamin C will also shorten the term of the cold. Does it prevent you from catching the cold? No. Best ways to prevent is to limit your exposure to the person sneezing next to you that is not covering their mouth. Wash your hands. I remember one time I was in Australia doing a lecture series with Doc and Steve Wallach, and I put my hand on a handrail on an escalator going down the escalator, and Doc literally did head slap me. He goes, "Do you know how dirty those things are?" And and I started to think about that and chuckle. What are dirty things that we touch every day? What you think about? I was just exposed to another one, and the plastic tubs at an airport have more bacteria on it than anything else in an airport.
You know,
And
continue, please.
that's disgusting to think about, but it's true. I know that a lot of the European ones, you don't even really touch the tubs anymore. They have these conveyor belts that do it all for me. You just drop your stuff in it, but you don't grab the tub like you do in the United States, put it on the conveyor belt because you always grab by the same handholds. Well, 1,000 other people have been doing it and they don't clean them. So, yuck. But, there's lots of ways to help with prevention of cold. You mentioned B vitamins, and that's true too. So we don't want to leave that out. But there again, get all 90 essential nutrients and you've got your bases covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the transmission of germs, I ride the New York City subway, so there's got to be the bubonic plague I'm touching on a daily basis. So I can only imagine. And some of the stuff is visible. But you opened up a can of worms. So now,
Uh-oh.
yeah, you did, because you mentioned Linus Pauling. So now you're going to be required to give us, because I was going to ask you for Dr. Wallach's story that we're not familiar with anyway, but now you got to give us a Dr. Wallach story that we're not familiar with and a Linus Pauling story that we're not familiar with.
So, a Dr. Wallach story we're not familiar with. So, we had a common friend that I went to Australia with and New Zealand and got deep vein thrombosis and got a whole bunch of blood clots in his lungs and was hospitalized with the blood clots. And the cardiologist that was there was actually a retired cardiologist from Chicago and was basically retired in New Zealand. And he was treating him the traditional way. And Doc got involved. Now, the physician was extremely tolerable, but didn't know who Doc was. But by the time Doc got done with him, he did. And he was calling that physician probably 5 times a day to get updates. He was not letting go. So Doc can be like a pit bull. And when he feels he's right, and he was having Gerhard Schrauzer call, he was having Dr. DeRue call, and he was supplying this guy with more research than he's ever seen before. But bottom line is he told the patient, odds on favor you won't be able to fly for at least 3 months with the number of blood clots you have in your system till we know your blood's clean. And even though New Zealand's a wonderful place to stay, everyone has work to be done. We have to get back home. And he says, I can't afford to stay here that long. And he says, well, I won't take you off an airplane ban until your blood's clear. Well, by going with Doc's protocol, that 3 months went down to 2 weeks.
Do you have any idea what that protocol was?
Oh, it was massive amounts of EFAs. I mean, he was taking 6 grams, 7 grams a day of EFAs, just 12 EFA pluses a day. And that was the primary part of it. And then he was taking a kidney product to support kidney health to flush the blood. In other words, he was getting the clots out of the system and then flushing the bloods. And he cleared them out in 2 weeks, and which really shocked the doctor because he would go in and get a blood test every day on the platelet count and what was going on with the blood, and was watching this changeover. But the amusing story is that the doctor actually let the individual go out and stay in a hotel because he was tired of getting the doctors calling him every day.
Wow.
So there's the Dr. Wallach story. The other story with Linus Pauling is that I didn't get to really meet him until I started to do some trade shows with Doc, and Doc knew him fairly well because he was in the state of Oregon as well and was doing these shows. And he just came by the booth once and was talking to Doc, and it took me probably 5 minutes to realize who he was. And then I was just kind of drooling out of my mouth, blah, 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 and he was just chatting with me, and Doc was praising me because longevity was fairly new at the time, and some of the formulas, he was looking at some of the formulas, and his passion with vitamin C was obvious. So the first question he goes is, what's your philosophy on why you have so little vitamin C? And I think the product had 500 milligrams at the time, really wasn't a light dose. And then so I turned around and I says, well, we could, but we have to have this balance. We're trying to keep it in suspension, and we have this belief in 90 essential nutrients. And he kind of went, yeah. Well, about 2 years later, I went to Oregon State to listen to him speak in an open forum, and he spotted me in the crowd, and he actually handpicked me out, asking if I've improved the formula by adding more vitamin C to it in front of 200 other people. And so, no, but I'm still interested in what you're doing and the new research you're doing, because he started to do research on telomere health towards the end of his illustrious career. So there's my 2 stories.
Okay, well, fantastic. But you did open the last can of worms. What about Gerhard Schrauzer?
Gerhard Strauzer's best experience with me is that he's one of the best professors I've ever been around that could break down something complex to something simple that everyone understands. And he says people would come to him and say, why don't you say that selenium is an antioxidant? Because he says selenium isn't an antioxidant. An antioxidant absorbs a free radical or breaks a free radical down and gets it out of your body. It doesn't work that way. Selenium is a cofactor that opens up other antioxidants to work better. So if you look down, you have all these closed doors, and if you open a door, selenium will work better, and you get rid of free radicals in your system. Selenium is the key that opens the door. And when he phrased it to me that way, I understood. The other quick story about Dr. Gerhard Schrauser is we were trying to get our products licensed in Japan. And Japan actually sent one of their lead chemists over to Portland, Oregon to talk to him about why the plant-derived minerals were good and selenium and whatnot. And the two were in the same room, and we have translators, but they were struggling. And it was kind of like beating our head against the wall. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Strauss sent me out of the room to go get a whiteboard. And I brought in a great big whiteboard in there. And then they just started to do chemistry on the whiteboard and quit talking. And it's when they started to do the chemistry on the whiteboard that the chemists from Japan started to understand where Dr. Schrauser was coming from and agreed that the benefits of selenium and gave the okay for us to bring it into Japan. But it wasn't the words that was being said. It was just the common strategy of organic chemistry on the board that they started to work with together, that they were able to meet the challenge. And I got to sit back and watch that, and I thought it was fascinating.
Amazing. And this is why we allow you to come on, because you just got a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of history about the products and the people who are integral in making the products that we all enjoy and have helped us and changed our lives. And, I appreciate you giving us your time and what you do for the company and what you do for everyone around us. And thank you, Richard, for being on today. And, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And, so we have on the screen with us our team that, without Becca and Ruth Ellen rocking and rolling with us today, we couldn't have made it without our team, Marilyn, Fingers Spear, and Mary, and Phyllis, and Albert. Everyone has their own role in putting this production together. And we do it to share the information with you out there, folks who are watching. And that's why we do it. We just love the company that we're all a part of, and we want you to love it too. So if you have some questions, make sure you give us a call, 855-949-3377. Speak to a certified holistic health coach. Richard kind of teasingly said, well, he's not a coach. Of course, he's got more combined knowledge than all of us. So you don't necessarily need to be a coach to provide help. So, folks, if you want to help your community, you want to help your friends, you want to help your family, we have a way that you can do it. You can trust us, but do your own research. Verify on your own. 855-949-3377. Reach out to us, or questions@dailywithdoc.com is a good way to reach us as well. Tomorrow, we will be back again live. Friday is pharmacist Ben Fuchs, who was on Coast to Coast last night. Be sure to go to the Critical Health News website, sign up for the newsletter, get all of Pharmacist Ben's articles and the new food diary template that you can use to help yourselves. Richard, once again, thank you for joining us. Any parting words for the folks, any inspiration, anything you'd like to say to anyone who is in earshot?
I guess I can say that Ben Fuchs and I have been friends for over 25 years. He's an amazing individual that is kind of a third party. In other words, he came in because he loved our products. And so he has a different background with me with personal care products and things like that. But he is a marvel of information, and I love him dearly. And I think you guys are going to be lucky to have him on Friday.
You're absolutely lucky to have him on Friday, and I do a show with him on Monday nights as well. Thank you, Richard, for the testimony. And all of you folks, we will see you tomorrow.
This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health. Dr. Joel